Why your energy drops at 3 p.m. and what your body may be trying to tell you. You may have noticed something curious about your energy levels during the day. The morning often starts with reasonable focus. By late morning, many people feel productive and alert. But sometime in the afternoon, often around 3 p.m., something changes. Your concentration fades. Your eyes feel heavier. Even simple tasks begin to require more effort. Many people assume this is simply the result of working too hard or not sleeping enough the night before. But the body rarely works in such a simple, linear way. That afternoon dip in energy may actually be connected to several natural rhythms inside the body, including how the brain manages alertness, how blood sugar fluctuates, and how the internal clock organizes the day. And once you understand these patterns, the 3 p.m. energy drop begins to make much more sense. The body's natural alertness cycle. One important factor is the body's circadian rhythm. This is the internal timing system that helps regulate sleep, alertness, body temperature, and hormone activity over a roughly 24-hour cycle. Most people know circadian rhythm as the system that makes us sleepy at night. But fewer people realize that it also creates small waves of alertness throughout the day. For many adults, alertness tends to follow a pattern that looks something like this. Morning alertness gradually rises after waking. By late morning, cognitive performance often reaches one of its highest points. Then sometime in the early to mid-afternoon, the brain naturally shifts into a slightly lower energy phase. This does not necessarily mean the body is tired in the same way it is at night. Instead, the brain temporarily reduces stimulation signals, which can create that familiar feeling of sluggishness. Interestingly, this pattern appears in many cultures around the world. Some societies even built their daily schedules around it, introducing mid-afternoon rest periods, often known as siestas. This suggests that the afternoon dip may not be a personal failure of discipline. It may simply be a biological rhythm. The blood sugar connection. Another factor that may influence afternoon fatigue is how the body processes energy from food. When you eat a meal, especially one containing carbohydrates, your body breaks those nutrients down into glucose. Glucose then enters the bloodstream and becomes a major source of energy for cells. However, this process does not always produce a steady, even supply of energy. In some situations, blood sugar levels rise relatively quickly after a meal, and then fall several hours later. If lunch contains a large amount of refined carbohydrates such as white bread, sugary drinks, or processed snacks, this rise and fall can be more pronounced. When glucose levels begin to decline, the brain may interpret that change as a signal that energy availability is decreasing. The result can be a feeling of fatigue, reduced concentration, or mild irritability. This pattern tends to occur 2 to 3 hours after eating, which often places it directly in the mid-afternoon window. That timing aligns surprisingly well with the familiar 3 p.m. slump many people experience. The brain's energy prioritization. The brain is also constantly managing how it allocates mental resources. Throughout the day, attention and decision-making require a considerable amount of neural activity. By the afternoon, the brain may begin shifting into a mode that conserves energy. One way it does this is by reducing the intensity of focus signals in the prefrontal cortex, the area involved in planning, reasoning, and complex thinking. When this happens, tasks that require sustained attention can feel significantly harder. Interestingly, the brain may also become more drawn to simple rewards during this period. This may help explain why people often crave snacks, coffee, or quick distractions in the afternoon. It is not necessarily a lack of willpower. It may simply reflect the brain's attempt to restore alertness through stimulation or additional fuel. The role of sleep pressure. There is also another biological system involved: sleep pressure. Sleep pressure gradually builds in the brain from the moment you wake up. A molecule called adenosine accumulates during waking hours, signaling the body that rest will eventually be needed. While sleep pressure is strongest at night, it also rises gradually throughout the day. By mid-afternoon, adenosine levels have already increased enough to create a mild sense of fatigue. This effect can become stronger if the previous night's sleep was shorter or less restful. That means the afternoon energy dip may actually reflect a combination of circadian rhythm and sleep pressure working together. Why some people feel it more than others. Not everyone experiences the 3 p.m. slump in the same way. Several factors may influence how noticeable it becomes. For example, sleep quality plays an important role. If sleep is fragmented or shorter than needed, the afternoon dip can feel significantly stronger. Daily activity patterns also matter. Long periods of sitting, especially in environments with limited natural light, may reduce stimulation signals that normally help maintain alertness. Hydration levels can also contribute. Even mild dehydration may influence energy perception and cognitive performance. Finally, meal composition and timing can amplify or soften the effect. Large meals, particularly those high in simple carbohydrates, may increase the likelihood of feeling sluggish later in the afternoon. Practical adjustments that may help. Because the afternoon energy dip is partly biological, it may not disappear entirely. However, certain habits may help reduce its intensity. One approach involves balancing lunch composition. Meals that include protein, fiber, and healthy fats may help create a slower release of energy, compared with meals dominated by refined carbohydrates. Another helpful adjustment may be brief physical movement. A short walk, light stretching, or even standing for several minutes can increase circulation and stimulate alertness signals in the brain. Exposure to natural light may also support the body's internal clock and reduce feelings of fatigue. Even stepping outside for a few minutes can sometimes make a noticeable difference. Some people also find that strategic caffeine timing helps. Rather than consuming caffeine late in the afternoon, a smaller amount earlier in the day may support alertness without interfering with nighttime sleep. Finally, short breaks during demanding work can help reset attention systems. Even brief pauses can allow the brain to recover from continuous cognitive effort. A broader perspective on daily energy. The key insight is that energy levels are not meant to remain perfectly stable throughout the day. The body operates through rhythms and cycles rather than constant output. Expecting consistent peak performance for 10 or 12 uninterrupted hours may simply not align with how the brain naturally functions. Instead, many researchers suggest that productivity improves when people work with these rhythms rather than against them. More demanding cognitive tasks may feel easier during periods of naturally higher alertness, such as the late morning. Meanwhile, lighter tasks or routine activities may fit better into the mid-afternoon window. Understanding this pattern may not eliminate fatigue entirely, but it can help explain why the 3 p.m. energy drop appears so consistently in daily life. Conclusion: that familiar afternoon slump may seem frustrating. Yet in many cases, it is not simply a sign of poor discipline or lack of motivation. It may be the result of several natural systems working together: circadian rhythms, blood sugar fluctuations, brain energy management, and the gradual buildup of sleep pressure. When you begin to recognize these patterns, the 3 p.m. dip becomes easier to understand. And instead of fighting against it, you may be able to adjust daily habits in ways that support the body's natural rhythm. Because sometimes the body is not failing. It may simply be following its own schedule.